Hello. So it took us a little while, but I think the discussion boards are now showing that you are starting to understand a little bit more about why there was a switch to a dome space for the churches in the Byzantine world under Justinian. So, as you probably have gathered by now, I don't want to just give you the answer. So I had to kind of think about ways to lead you to the answer without actually telling you directly. So good work on that. But I do want to have this short video clip that kind of explains to you a little bit specifically about what Justinian was thinking, what art historians think Justinian was thinking, and a little bit more about Neoplatonism. So it's always been my contention from my study of churches in the 6th century that there was not a change in the liturgy. There's no evidence that there was any change to the performance of the liturgy from the early Christian period when they built basilicas like St. Peter's. There was no change in the liturgy. So the change in structure had to have a different reason. Obviously, if you're changing the function of the space, then that could be the reason that the church space changes, but there was no change in function or ritual. So it's always been my contention that it had to be something more theological, that there was a thinking that was going on that was connected to classical thought, but that was also a theological Eastern Orthodox idea that was floating around that Justinian was aware of. And when we say Justinian built it, it's not like he was out there with a shovel or something, like a pickaxe. But he was responsible for pushing this forward, and he definitely met with the uh, mathematicians, the theorists that actually came up with Hagia Sophia. So San Vitale, yes, was started when there was an Ostrogothic king, but Justinian conquered Italy very shortly after that. So most people think that Justinian probably had something to do with the fact that they chose a dome for San Vitale. And I put up more recently, I guess end of last week, maybe this weekend, a plan of St. Sergius and Bacchus, which is another church in Constantinople that's a little funky. If you look at that plan really closely, you can see that like things are just off just a little bit. And again, some art historians think that that also shows that they were working out how to put a dome on a square base because that's not easy. And even if you think about the Pantheon in Rome, you could say, well, they had domes in Rome, so why was this so hard? The domes in Rome were always on, or tended to be on, a circular base. So it's easy to put a circle on a circle, but it's harder to put a dome, on a square base. So that was what they were attempting to do, and pendentives are the way that they do it. So the idea, though, of why they wanted to have this dome structure for their churches is that there was a verticality that they were trying to emulate and get people to think about, because the belief here is in this Neoplatonic thinking. It's a little bit like Plato, but again, Neoplatonism was trying to take Platonic thought and merge it better with Christianity. So the idea is that in this perfect world, the heavens, which are conceived of as a dome, that's a classical understanding that the Orthodox pick, or that the Byzantines pick up, that in the heavens there is an eternal liturgy going on. It is a perfect liturgy that is unending, like a circle is unending. And so at the moment that we have the liturgy on the earthly realm in the church, you're actually connecting for that time that you're physically and temporally on earth having the liturgy. You are connecting with that eternal liturgy that's happening in the heavens, that's happening in that perfect world in the heavenly realm. So the idea is if you have a dome, then you are accentuating that vertical connection between the temporal liturgy and the eternal liturgy. And so this is why I think, and most art historians agree, that there was a switch to a dome, and they stay with the dome all during the rest of the Byzantine period. There are times when money is tight and domes can't be built on the grand scale that we see in Hagia Sophia, but they tend to always try to have a dome of some sort, even if it's smaller, and placed over a nave, like in a crossing or something like that. So that is the reason. There's this idea of this eternal liturgy that's going on, and they're hooking into it when they have their liturgy in Hagia Sophia or in any church. And that's the reason why the vertical axis is so important. And I'll just finish up a little bit more with Neoplatonism. I drew my little triangle, and matter is at the bottom. So that's like the lowest of the hierarchy because it's just stuff. And it's just of the physical world. There's no redeeming quality to it. And nous, at the top of the triangle, is pure idea, that idea of the one, of the true being. There's different ways to kind of translate that. But the idea is that's like the perfection and the idealism. So the idea of where, my question, which is where would art go, two of you posted, or maybe a couple more of you, but I know two of you kind of made a attempt with a diagram. You put art in the middle, either going up on the slope or inside the triangle. That's exactly where art goes. And so this is getting a little bit into the topic we were dancing around, which is why abstraction, even though there's some hint of naturalism, why are they shifting to a more abstract way of representing the world? And the reason is that art is physical matter, but it can be something that you meditate on to get to nous. So this is where we're getting a little closer into icons, which we're going to be looking at in much more depth in the next module about, well, what are icons actually doing and what do you do with them and what's their purpose? So the idea here is that art is made of physical matter, but you meditate on it, it can bring you to nous. It kind of fits in the middle of that triangle. It's not only matter, but it can help you sort of transform your thinking into some higher level thinking. But if you show the art as only looking like we see on Earth, in other words, all like naturalism, then you're keeping it kind of grounded with the physical matter. So it's my contention that that art is moving to a more abstract phase in this period, is because that helps get you to something other than the world. When we see a naturalistic looking painting or sculpture, that grounds it into what we see here around us. And instead, if you can make it more abstract, that's pushing it towards this nous, that's pushing it towards this otherworldly, non-physical world. And the abstract art is made of physical matter, but is abstracted to look like it's about something else that's not of this world, kind of fits together. So those are the two things I wanted to kind of wrap up for us. I know you're going to be busy now reading, if you haven't already started it, the article about Justinian mosaics, the Theodora Justinian mosaic in San Vitale. You have a paper due by 11:59 p.m. Thursday night coming up this week. I'll try to turn those around as quickly as possible. I do have to travel to New York for a conference and won't be back until late Saturday. So I'll try to get them done while I'm traveling, but I may not get to them until Sunday, so it just depends on how things go. And the nice thing about this class is I've been sick all of February, and yet I've been able to carry on class because my brain is functioning even though my body is not. So I'm feeling better today. So those of you that have me for face-to-face classes, everything's on for today and hopefully for the rest of the semester. So any questions, you know how to email me. Learning logs have been a little iffy this module, so put a little thought into those. Discussion boards have been good. Some of you could be doing a little bit more. I'd like to see all of you more actively engaged, like everybody all the time. But it was good. I mean, there wasn't anything really bad about it. And there'll be some additional discussion questions on the Justinian article after you do your paper. So I'll be posting those again, same time frame, maybe Friday, maybe Saturday, but it might not be until Sunday. But then there's like 3 days before we start the next module for you to log on and make some comments about the article and the questions I'm asking. Okay? So, good job. Keep it up. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.